Breathing is the alternate inhalation and exhalation of air. This ventilation of your lungs maintains high oxygen and low carbon dioxide concentrations at the respiratory surface. There are two types of breathing: positive pressure breathing, used mostly by amphibians, and negative pressure breathing, used by mammals. As mammals, humans use the negative pressure breathing for ventilation. When we inhale, our diaphragm contracts and moves downward. It expands our chest cavity and increases the volume of our lungs. This lowers the air pressure in the alveoli to less than the atmospheric pressure. Flowing from a region of higher pressure to one which is lower, air is pulled through the nostrils and down the tubes to the alveoli. When we exhale, our diaphragm relaxes and moves upward. It decreases the volume of the rib cage and chest cavity and increases air pressure in the lungs, forcing air out. There is what we call the tidal volume, or the volume of air we inhale and exhale in every breath we take, while the vital capacity refers to the volume of air breathed during maximal inhalation or exhalation. But when we exhale, we do not exhale all the air that we've inhaled, and that is what we call the residual volume or the dead air. Even though we can try to hold our breath voluntarily, most of the time, our breathing is under involuntary control. The reason behind this is because of our breathing control center. Our breathing control center, represented here as green, is in a part of our brain called medulla oblongata, which ensures that our breathing rate is coordinated with our body's need for oxygen. Nerves from this center signal the diaphragm and rib muscles to contract, causing one to inhale. The center regulates breathing rate in response to changes in the carbon dioxide level of the blood. The more carbon dioxide in our body, the more we produce carbonic acid. And this acid slightly lowers the pH of the blood and the cerebrospinal fluid. When the central chemoreceptors, which monitors carbon dioxide and pH levels, senses this pH drop, its control center increases both the rate and depth of breathing. Thus, carbon dioxide is eliminated and pH level is normalized. A secondary control over breathing is exerted by the peripheral chemoreceptors, with aorta and carotid arteries as key groups. These peripheral chemoreceptors senses levels of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and pH. When oxygen level in the blood is severely depressed, these sensors signal the control center via nerves to increase the rate of breathing. The breathing control center responds to a variety of nervous and chemical signals that serve to keep the rate and depth of one's breathing in tune with the metabolic needs of the body. Each gas has what we call a partial pressure, the pressure that accounts for a portion of the total pressure of the mixture. Molecules of each kinds of gas will diffuse down a gradient of their own partial pressure independently of the other gases. During the transport of respiratory gases, the circulatory system also plays a part. But let's start from the lungs. Here, the partial pressure of oxygen, PO2, in the air inside the alveoli is greater than the PO2 in the blood. Oxygen diffuses to red blood cells from the air. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide, PCO2, in the lungs is lesser than the pCO2 in the blood. That is why carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood to the alveoli. Oxygenated blood is carried through the pulmonary veins into the heart, and the heart pumps the blood into the systematic arteries to the body. Partial pressure of oxygen, PO2, in the blood is greater than the PO2 in the body tissues. Oxygen diffuses from red blood cells to tissues through the interstitial fluid. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide, pCO2, in the blood is lesser than the pCO2 in the tissues. That's why carbon dioxide diffuses from tissues to the blood through the interstitial fluid. The oxygenated blood is then carried through the systematic arteries into the heart, and the heart through the pulmonary veins to the lungs. The physical process underlying this gas exchange is diffusion of each gas down its partial pressure gradient.